Now, 4 instruments offered to investors at Monday's FGN bond auction raised a total subscription of 312.6 billion naira, signaling a strong investor appetite for the 30-year bond on offer. Meanwhile, Angola's state-owned oil companies Sonangol has offered a 75 billion kwanzas corporate bond with maturity date of 14th September 2028 at a rate of 17.5% per annum. Wonuola Akanbi, head of energy and infrastructure, global markets at Stanbic IBTC Bank, joins me for some market updates. Wonuola, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about this bond auction. 30-year bond. It looks like there's too strong appetite for it. But at the same time, investors are digesting the latest inflation numbers for July out from Nigeria for 24.1%. Food inflation, just over 26%. What are your thoughts?
All right, yeah, so yesterday the DMO issued about 227 billion of bonds on the 53s, on the 2038s, 2033s, and 2029s. The bulk of the sale was on the 30-year bond, which was 2053, about over 180 billion sold there. I mean, the market had expected a weaker auction, and that was largely because, so if you look at the previous auction, they had issued those bonds at 14.3. Okay. So that's like over 100 basis points higher. We are starting to see a lot of sell-off from the market into this auction, and the reason is because central bank had started the tightening policy. They basically posted debits to banks that were below the LDR ratio. So they were really trying to get cash reserves from those banks. They also issued OMO bills last week as well, about 80 billion on the 1 year at 14.446%. So all of that basically gave the expectation of a weaker auction. Going into what we've seen today and what we expect, into the week and into the coming months, we expect that the bonds will continue to trade wider. Those 2053s were offered in the market today at 15.95, slightly higher than where it closed yesterday, and that's still largely because maybe some of the speculative buyers were looking to offload their positions, as they expect more tightening from the central bank.
We're speaking about tightening. Before we go to Angola, just that point, interest rate expectations for Nigeria, 24% high year on year for inflation for July, and we know that the central bank, tightening has been the strategy so far. What is your forecast? Are we going to see further tightening, or you and I were talking earlier? You said you expect more activity around the corridor instead.
Yes. So. Because how do you effectively transmit monetary policy rates into the market, right? Even if you increase the monetary policy rate in itself, you need that to transmit into the money markets. So there are 2 ways you can do that. Is either you either you increase cash reserving, right? And then funding cost starts to basically go up. You issue OMO bills, which basically increases the cost on the central bank as well. However, or you then increase what you remunerate on the standing deposit facility. So if you look at the corridor, banks can currently place just 2 billion of their excess liquidity, at 15.75. If you remove that cap, that then means that banks can place all the excess liquidity at 15.75, and that immediately transmits into treasury bill markets. It transmits into the overnight market because that will just basically be the benchmark rate. As you continue to do that, risk starts to go up, and then maybe we start to see other participants in the market, like foreign portfolio investors, getting interested in the market, because we need a lot of that dollar liquidity, into the system.
So that is your forecast. You expect the CBN to go in that, the MPC to go in that direction.
Definitely
more tightening, definitely. Let's go into some news from Angola. Let's talk about Sonangol launching a domestic bond at the capital market for the first time, as looking inwards this time to pay off debt and finance some project. Now, the country, Angola, is excited, and they believe that this will boost the domestic bond market. But what are your thoughts in terms of how this can actually, what it could do for the market in terms of maybe debt?
Yeah, it's positive because, and I think the 2 key factors are, like, it brings in transparency into what the Sonangol, the state entity, is basically raising. Prior to now, they've only raise foreign currency borrowings, and that's just done on a bilateral basis.
Okay.
And, because they're raising foreign currency debt, that basically puts pressure on the reserves, it puts pressure on the currency. So them going into this direction, is very, very positive for the reserves and for the currency over there. However, we expect that because of the supply we're seeing, with the corporate bond issuance, we start to see bond yields basically tick up there. Okay. If you look at the equivalent bonds, the government bond is, being traded around 15%. This at 17.5 basically puts more pressure on the interest rates.
But I remember, the company did say that this is just a test about just looking at just under 81 million euros that they're seeking to raise at the market. And he did say that if the market is able to accommodate more going forward, they could actually come back.
Yes.
Is that something that's feasible? Or we just have to wait and see
I think we have to wait and see, but there's a lot of excitement, at least that local participants can basically participate now.
All right. Let's talk about Angola's inflation also. We saw slower inflation, 12.1% in July. Is the MPC on track to seeing a further retraction? Well,
I think if you just look at it in general, inflation is the major driver right now across the world in terms of interest rates. So it's not like they would start to see the MPC moderate. They'll just basically hold on continue their current stance on that. All
right. Now, for inflation numbers for Ghana, I know that Ghana has continues to see an uptick. But not the highs we saw last year, over 50. But still that pressure there. And we know that energy costs are still elevated, transportation costs are still elevated, food prices are still elevated. At what point could we see a softening? I know that's a tricky question to ask. We're still going through that IMF program. We're still seeing some positive shoots from there. But what are your overall thoughts?
Well, the target is between 6 to 10%, right? So I don't think they'll stop anytime soon. Last MPC, they hiked 50 basis points. Food inflation is still pretty much high, 50%, right? So they need to do more with regards, to tightening over there. So I expect more increases from the Bank of Ghana. Coincidentally, we started to see the government as well issue debt. Just this week, they issued about 3.5 billion CD worth of treasury bills, and I think the 1 year sold above 30% actually. So we still expect all of that to transmit into interest rates there. So we expect higher interest rates and more tightening measures from the Bank of Ghana. Okay,
I'll keep our fingers crossed on that. Wonuola, thank you for talking to us today. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Wonuola Akanbi, Head of Energy and Infrastructure Global Markets at Stanbic IBTC Bank.